And so I'd like to invite Steffi to come up and share the uh, welcome statement and the guidelines. And you can sit. You can sit here because that way people on Zoom can see you. Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's see. Let's see if it works. Let's see if you can test it out.
Test, test. Can everyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Can everyone on Zoom hear Steffi? Okay, good.
This is the welcome statement. At Pacific Northwest Meditation, we honor and welcome each of you. Whether you are just beginning or have been walking the path for years, your presence matters, and we're grateful that you're here. We warmly welcome people of every age, ethnicity, cultural heritage, and religious backgrounds. We welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities and all socioeconomic groups and all abilities. We also want to acknowledge the fullness and richness of your identity, including dimensions we may not have named aloud, and to honor the many intersecting ways in which we all experience the world. We gather to practice and study not just for our own awakening, but for the benefit of all beings and this living earth. We recognize the suffering caused by prejudice, power, privilege, and systems of oppression. Together, we aspire to do no harm. We commit ourselves to dismantling barriers that create separation and suffering, knowing that our own liberation is inseparably tied to the liberation of all. With mindfulness and loving kindness as our guides, we work together to create a space where everyone feels respected, safe, and truly welcomed. We recognize that this is a dynamic, evolving process that requires continual listening, learning, and care, especially towards voices that have been historically marginalized. Our shared leadership embraces the responsibility to foster policies and practices that support true inclusion, and we know that it takes the heartfelt engagement of every Sangha member to help create and sustain a community that reflects the Dharma we aspire to embody. We also pause to honor and acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this region whose ancestral lands we now occupy. These include the Willamette, the Clackamas, the Multnomah, Tualatin, and the many tribes and bands now part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. We recognize the Cowlitz, the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and the Siletz, and the many Native communities who have long lived along the Willamette and Columbia rivers and throughout the Cascades since time immemorial. We remember that Portland is still home to many diverse Native communities. We honor all Indigenous peoples past, present, and future, and offer our deep gratitude for their continued presence, wisdom, and resilience. Land acknowledgements are just one small step toward disrupting the legacy of colonization. They are the beginning of a much larger conversation and a call to right relationship, learning, and action. These are our community guidelines for sharing and our sharing practice. We invite you to help us maintain a welcoming and respectful space for all by following a few simple guidelines posted near the door and also read here. Out of the care for those with sensitivities, we strive to be a scent-free space. Please refrain from wearing scented products when attending. For those with neurodiversities or anyone seeking a quiet space, we offer a peaceful garden space through the doors beside the elevators. Please leave the door open if you step outside. If you need additional support to feel comfortable or engaged, please don't hesitate to speak with us. We are committed to cultivating a space of safety and inclusion. Racist, homophobic, transphobic, non-binary, exclusionary, ableist, and otherwise harmful language is not accepted. As a Sangha, we gently call each other in when something painful is said and supporting both protection and learning of all. We aim to listen and speak with mindfulness and open hearts. And we invite you to introduce yourself using your pronouns if you care to. And it's as a practice that we do that in respect and inclusion for all gender identities. Pronouns are an important part of someone's expression and may include combinations like he, him, she, her, they, them, or others. We acknowledge that mistakes happen, and we encourage compassion and forgiveness as we all learn together. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Steffi. And so today's talk is themed around this sense of finding that middle way between what's too much and what's too little. So I'd like to invite you all into this way of practicing when we go into our meditation. And how we will go about that is while you're sitting in meditation, I will offer some anchors. You might choose those anchors, or you might have another way that you prefer to practice. You're welcome to do that too. But something perhaps you could try on is when we are in meditation, it's not a completely passive practice. So there is a degree of effort and energy that we want to apply. So how that would look like and feel like is when you're sitting and you feel maybe so chilled and a little sedated, too sedated, then it's to kind of turn that energy up a little bit. So you might invite in the breath, breathe a little bit harder to give rise to that energized feeling, that quality. Because the mind, we want to have the mind come to a place where it's alert, it's lucid, it's here, right? And it's fully here. It's fully in touch with the aliveness of each moment. So oftentimes, if we're used to a lot of stimulation, when we sit in meditation, we can fall into that sleepy dullness or even boredom. So, and we can acknowledge that. I'm falling into that. I had a really active day, so as soon as I sit, I just want to sleep, right? So how we work with that internally is to breathe a little bit harder, or maybe sit a little more upright, or imagine, light, or maybe even opening up your eyes so that you can see. And that could be just enough stimulation, it gives a little energy to kind of brighten up the mind, or energy to keep us more alert and awake. Mm-hmm. And then if you're in touch with restlessness, you feel just a restlessness, a sense of there's turbulence or anxiousness inside, then that might be too much. Then we want to lean the other way, where maybe lean back, relax a little more. Stop trying to apply too much effort to grab onto the breath or whatever anchor, right? So then that's where, when it's too much, to move back, create space, maybe allow the breath to be really soft and easy. So there's always this internal balancing, discerning. Is this too much or too little right now? Do I need to dial it up, or do I need to turn it down? Right? So we're learning how to balance the energy within us. And I always like the metaphor of I have this wood oven or stove at the house, and it's so we burn the wood, and then I have to put in the right amount of air, right? So it's just the right amount to keep it going. So not too much where it takes the flame out, and not too little where the fire will go out. So just enough. So there's this way in which when we're practicing, we're really tuning into that. Because if we are mindful but we don't apply that effort, we will fall into forgetfulness. The mind will drift. Or if you try neither of that, see what happens too, right? So this is just a suggestion of a way to practice with how to find what is just right. Too little effort, too much effort, and what is just right. And you can just feel that internally where it's like, okay, this is a little too much. So maybe I need to stop trying to do the practice and just sit here and let things arise. Just, rest back, right? So perhaps experimenting with that and feeling that out. So I invite you now to find a shape, a form, a posture that feels supportive and stable. So take a moment to adjust yourself, whether you choose to sit on the chair or on the floor. Here we have some cushions. And noticing if the back is upright. Does it feel more comfortable to sit more upright or to rest back a little bit into so that your back touch the backrest, or to be more straight up, right? Yeah, so you're welcome to assume any posture that feels good. Yeah, so if you want to sit on the floor, feel free to do that. And for those of you at home, you also have the option of perhaps lying down if right now your body says no thank you to sitting, right? And it says mindfulness can be cultivated in all postures. And finding one that feels really supportive. And meeting your body in this moment now. In this moment now. So we might ask ourselves, what does my body need from me in this moment? And as you're arriving, seeing if there's any gentle movement you like to invite into the body, stretching the neck, rolling the shoulder. And if it feels good, inviting in that fuller, deeper breath. Perhaps breathing in and out through the nostrils and letting the breath fill up the lungs and the belly with air. And then with the out-breath releasing, softening, letting go. What is just right? And just right might look different for each person. So as you ground your attention to the body, might notice where the body makes contact with the chair, the cushion, or the floor. Feeling the heaviness of the body. Notice where the hands are resting. There comes a point when we declare that however the body is right now is good enough. Instead of trying to achieve perfection in our posture, we just allow ourselves to rest back with however the body is. Softening, letting go of any tendency to hold up the posture. Just allow the body to rest back. And turning our attention inwards to notice what it feels like to inhabit the body. And you might choose to anchor your attention to the tactile sensations, or bringing awareness now to the breath. Noticing the breath coming in and out of the nostrils. Experiencing the cool air entering the nostrils and warm air leaving the nostrils. And notice when the breath passes through the chest, what's that like? And as the breath filled the belly with air, notice the belly expanding. And then when the breath empties, notice the belly contracting. Making direct contact with the breath in the body. Maybe you can hear the sound of your breath. Notice the movement of the breath rising and falling in the chest. Even in the shoulders. How subtle this movement is, but now so apparent. And does it feel good to breathe a little bit harder? Or does it feel better to let the breath become subtle, letting go of control? Perhaps resting your attention where you feel the breath is most alive, or maybe where it feels really neutral and nourishing. You might move your awareness towards sound, or maybe just for a moment when the arising of sound comes into the field of awareness. If that feels like a supportive anchor, you can rest your attention there. Or maybe coming back to the breath or the body. What's important is the quality of your attention. notice where there's a possibility to further soften the body, soften thoughts, feelings, emotions. And to discern whether to come closer to meet whatever's here, to intimate with it, or to move back, create space, and let the breath take care of you. Rest in your body. Generating interest, the kind of interest that looks for the calm, the ease, that looks for the goodness and the joy within you. Where there might be a little touch of that goodness. resting, resting deeply. I return my life to the one who listens deeply to the sounds of the world, resting, resting deeply. I return my life to the one who listens deeply to the sounds of the world, resting, resting deeply. I return my life to the one who listens deeply to the sounds of the world. Mindfully rising from meditation, continuing to carry this energy of awareness that stays in tune and in touch with the moment to moment experience as best as you can. Perhaps to taking a moment to savor any goodness, anything that came out of your practice. Just allowing yourself to kind of feel that, let that deepen within you. And whenever you're ready, you can stretch your legs, stretch the body. Mm. And we'll take a 5-minute break here. So you could take this time to offer yourself some tender, loving care, maybe stretching, massaging the body, maybe taking a bio break. For those of you here in the room, there's a water fountain right outside this door on the right, and then the restroom is straight ahead. As soon as you open this door, there's also one upstairs, up the stairs, and one in the cafeteria. And I'll see you back all on the screen at about, let's just go for to 5:40. So really taking this time to take care of yourself, nourish yourself. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome, Kimberly. Mhm. We have a couple folks here returning into the room. Mm. Right, Steffi. I have it on the top.
Hi, friends. I want to share something from the heart. As many of you know, this little Sangha keeps growing, and week after week, more people are finding their way here. Some arriving stressed, some arriving grieving, some just needing a quiet place to breathe. And it's been beautiful to witness how this community holds them, the way a Pacific Northwest forest holds everything that falls into it, gently, without judgment. To continue offering this refuge, we're hoping to take 2 next steps. First, to offer another sitting group in West Lynn, and hopefully move into a larger room upstairs at some point. Second is to offer fair support to our teachers who give to us so generously of their time and their hearts, including continuing bringing guest teachers. If this group has supported you, and if it's helped you steady your mind or soften your heart, we invite you, only if it feels right, to contribute to our Sangha building. Truly, no amount is too small. Every offering, even the cost of a cup of tea, helps us grow in a way that's sustainable and rooted in kindness. There's a donation bowl on the side table here, and you can also give to us online using Venmo or through a direct deposit through Zelle. You may also want to consider being a monthly donor through Zelle. And if contributing financially isn't possible right now, please know that your presence here is already a gift. And we can always use volunteers to help set up the room, greet people, and take down tech equipment, setting up for social hour every month, once a month. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. May our shared practice continue to ripple outwards in ways that we don't even see.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Steffi. Mhm. 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 And I'll put the link in the chat where you can go to pacificnorthwestmeditation.org/Dana to make your donation if you feel moved to do so. And today I wanted to cover this topic on the middle way from an angle of how we practice on this path with all that is in our time now. Um, first with the amount of information that we have available to us. You know, how much is too much and how much is not enough. And my guess is that it's probably right now leaning towards too much for most of us. Even for me, someone who doesn't consume the news, there's still too much information. I can feel it in my body. Too much communication, too many notifications, too many platforms to manage and apps. And then also, you know, the structure of our lives today is that we spend too much time alone and too little time being with each other in person. That feels kind of foreign, like to, to meet people face to face, to be in the same room and co-regulate with each other. That is so rare now. So I invite you into this inquiry as you know, where is it too much right now in your life and where is it too little? What areas do we experience that? Too much and too little. If you feel comfortable with sharing, maybe for those of you on Zoom, just putting that in the chat. What is too much right now? What's too little right now? Or for those of you in the room, you can just shout it out and I'll repeat it back so people can hear on Zoom. Mm-hmm. Mm. I'm, yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. So repeat what Steffi said. Yeah. So the what to do with time and to manage time or to not manage it and to fill it up, fill the schedule up, or to kind of leave space in your schedule, right? What to do? Is it too much doing or not enough doing? Yes. Mhm. Overwhelmed. Yeah. Yeah. News. Hmm. About time. Mm. Mm. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So there's what's too much and too little between the projects that are at home, you know, like to let it let it pile. Is that okay? Or is that too much? Or or am I doing too little? Right. Um, okay, I see some messages in the chat. Thank you everyone for sharing. I see that you're sending it to me privately. Yeah. This the settings with this particular Zoom line right now is apparently it's disabled for everyone to write. So you could write to me and I can read it. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so with the too much news and too much to do and time and how to find that balance. And Margaret says, I feel pretty balanced because I don't do social media and I try to minimize the news. Wow, wonderful, Margaret. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah.
I feel so much better when I'm able to do that.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I never took up social media, so I'm kind of really very glad I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Really. That was a wise move.
Thank you.
Hmm. So this this is what the Buddha, before he reached enlightenment, what he struggled with too. I mean, for a very long time, those years of practicing, being in the forest and just, okay, I'm gonna concentrate and, master this. And it was this sense of like, you know, should I lean more towards like the bare minimum and, rough it out, right? And he did that for so many years. And then he had a moment where he fainted because he was like not eating and he was just meditating like all through the night. I mean, he had a strong conviction, he had determination. And then inside of that, it was just the scale tipped too much in one direction. It was a little excessive. And so when he fainted, um, so there was a woman from the village who came and brought him food, brought him, it was either rice, water, or chicken broth. Um, and he accepted her offering and he realized that, okay, this is not going to work. I can't just starve myself and just meditate until I reach, awakening. There's got to be a balance here. I have to take care of myself, maintain this body, and bring it to a state of well-being, And he remembered the time when he was younger. He was like maybe 7 years old, and he was outside, and he had stepped away from the crowd and went and sat underneath this tree. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. And he could hear the kids laughing and playing in the distance. And he sat there underneath the tree and it was so pleasant. All the conditions were just right. It's just blissful. And when he sat there, he entered into the deeper meditative states known as the jhanas. And so he recalled that. He recalled that from his childhood and said, those are the conditions that needs to be present. We need to give rise to those conditions. So the condition of well-being, the condition of goodness, what gives rise to that wholesomeness, that goodness. And so we could look at that when we're taking in information or how much to do, how much is enough and how much is now just too much. And we are so, in our society, we're so conditioned that our sense of worth and who we are is how much we get done, right? And that says something about me if I'm someone who can get all this done. And if I'm not, that says something about me too, or what I say about myself. Yeah. And I see in the chat, someone says, even cutting back from too much information is still not enough. Some friends tell me they don't look at any news after 4 p.m. or in the evening. So the an approach to getting in touch with what's too much and what's too little, we can explore that through mindfulness. Like during our meditation practice, were you able to get in touch with when it felt overwhelming, right? Or when it felt like things were starting to really cool down, when it felt really still, or when it felt like you were not really here, you weren't really engaged, right? That it was just a little too little. So this is how we can use the practice of meditation and mindfulness to help us tune in to know what is too much and too little for us. I think that it's going to be different for each person, what is too much and too little. Um, this is so between these two extremes, there's the extreme that the Buddha uh, practiced in, the conditions of like very little, right? Asceticism. And then the lifestyle that he was born into and grew up in, which was just filled with sense pleasure and indulgences. And in our society now, what does that look like for us, for each one of us, right? So the practice of mindfulness can help us tune in to know that and feel that in our nervous system. Is this too much for my nervous system right now? If I read one more email or one more text, or should I just set it down for the day? Right? And this is how we tune into that within ourselves because we have to, we want to get to the place where we understand our capacity. And no one knows that more than us, reading our own internal state. What's my capacity for this? Right? There's the teacher's capacity, the Buddha's capacity, there's, practitioner, our capacity varies. And so the invitation here is to explore where's your window of tolerance? How much is enough? And how much is too much? And the way to go about that is to tune in, to feel what is your nervous system saying? What's the tone, the feeling tone of this moment as I'm taking this in, as I'm consuming this food, this information, this conversation, as I just completed that last task? Do I have more in me, or this is enough? This is where I stop. And the Buddha didn't realize that until he, fainted, that he was like, okay, that's not serving. That's not wise and skillful. I need to, you know, refine this. I need to change the way I'm going about this. And so, because all the yogis around him were starving themselves, meditating all through the night, and it was just, they took on these really hard practices, you know, and he realized this is not the way. This got to be something a little more grounded in the middle. So Instead of not eating, he went to having one meal a day, which is still a tradition amongst a lot of the Theravada monks to this time. Even here in the US, they'll have their one meal or maybe just two meal a day. And so this path of practice invites us to explore this, explore this in a way that has us know, where am I not growing or furthering or deepening in my path because I'm staying in this zone that's just too comfortable. I'm not meeting the edge of the experience, right? That's also a pitfall too when we practice and everything is always good. We haven't allowed ourselves to go to those sticky, entangled place where we get to um, meet the edge of growing, of learning, of understanding ourself, right? Of discovering our blind spot or a place where there's still room for us to let go of our attachment to something or to let go of a certain belief. For me, it was like when I went on a long retreat, I I was like, there is no way I could have two meals a day. I have to have dinner. And then I went on that retreat and I was like, packed all this extra food on the side because they weren't going to serve dinner. And then after seeing those who came before me who were able to observe just two meals a day, I was like, it's possible. It's humanly possible. And that's when I knew if they could do it, I can do this too. And I knew it was a training of the mind at that point. So from that time on, so I challenged myself to having two meals a day and worked through the craving and the aversion and the discomfort and all that came with it. And then eventually broke through. And now most days I only have two meals and it's enough. So how we could actually be surprised by what is too much, what is too little, what is enough. And one of the ways we can practice this too, to arrive at this state of contentment, so there's the one extreme of too much, and then the other extreme is too little, and then the third way is, you know, just right, that what is enough, like the sense of enoughness. And what arose actually earlier today too in the retreat is this recognition that, when we return back to our body and our mind and body come home to each other and our hearts, and we return to the breath. In that moment where we are fully there, we're fully present, and the body, mind, and heart unites and comes together, there is this feeling that whatever is here is enough. And that's the rising of contentment where in this moment I'm not lacking anything. In this moment, I don't need anything more. In this moment, what is here is enough. It's just right. So that's also a way to practice the practice of recognizing that I have all the conditions here to be happy, to be at peace. And it doesn't involve more doing, right? But the doing can come after we reach that state of feeling I already have enough. I feel like, you know, like I've done enough. I have enough. So mindfulness is that internal thermostat or barometer that has us know when there's just too much pressure and when there's not enough, movement, not enough wind or energy. Um, and the middle way, you know, the middle way that the Buddha discovered when these events occurred was, you know, was also required letting go of letting go of the self and letting go of rites and rituals, letting go to certain beliefs that it has to be this way in order for me to dot, 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 right? And so inside of that too, there's a letting go of certain views that we have that prevent us from accessing contentment or peace, what's already here for us. So it's this, it's not settling for less, it's not settling, but it's more of a recognition that what is here is sufficient. It's a recognition and it's a continue practice of coming back to that recognition. Because mindfulness, the word mindfulness, sati in itself, means remembering. So when we forget, we are reaching out for something more. You know, we're craving or we want something less than what's here. And mindfulness is this recognition that what's here is enough. And I think in our conversation or in your sharing, I hear that right now it sounds like in most of our lives it's leaning towards too much, more so than not enough, right? Yeah. Yeah. And that really impacts our nervous system, really impacts our nervous system. It creates a lot of anxiety and restlessness, compounding restlessness. So for the Buddha, it was a different case. He was leaning the other way, like it was too little. So we have a different version where there's just too much right now, too much for us. So when we lean into that, when we're in that mind state of I need more and what's here is not enough, that is the poison, the poison of the mind that is of greed. Okay, so it's in that space of greed and craving and attachment that, consumerist mindset. And I think this might be present for us too, the other side of it, which is more of the I don't have enough right now, which causes us to consume and buy more, need more. right? I don't have enough also can produce a kind of similar action. I am lacking. So that scarcity mindset also causes us to carry out certain actions. And that scarcity could also create resistance and aversion to what is here. So we could apply mindfulness to where we get attached and cling to something, and then where we have aversion and disliking. And between those two places, aversion and attachment, it causes us to move into what might be too much. And I think baby inside of not enough, as I hear you all share the too much side, what's not enough is not enough space in our schedule, not enough time to rest, right? Not enough, meaningful connection. Like even the conversations that are had are, maybe around politics or around the doing, the who, what, when, where. Not enough of that, the depths that we're looking for, that truly feeds us and nourishes us and gives rise to wholesomeness within. I want to share an excerpt from the Middle Way, the discourse on the Middle Way. This is translated by my teacher Zen Master Thich Khan. The Middle Way says that this is because that is. This is not because that is not. Because there is ignorance, basically blind spots that we have, right? There are impulses. Because there are impulses, there is consciousness. Because there is consciousness, there is psyche-soma. Because there is psyche-soma, there are the six senses. Because there are the six senses, there is contact. Because there is contact, there is feeling. Because there is feeling, there is craving. Because there is craving, there is grasping. Because there is grasping, there is becoming. Because there is becoming, there is birth. Because there is birth, there are old age, death, grief, and sorrow. This is how this entire mass of suffering arises. But with the fading away of ignorance, impulses cease. With the fading away of impulses, consciousness ceases. And finally, birth, old age, death, grief, and sorrow will fade away. This is how this entire mass of suffering ceases. So when he talks about the psyche soma, he's talking about the mind and body. So to understand that suffering comes to be when conditions are favorable, and that it fades away when conditions are no longer favorable. So the suffering that we feel in our nervous system, that restlessness, that overwhelm, it's shaped by these conditions, right? These conditions, what we acted upon, what we consume, what we took in consciously or unconsciously, or just by way of our habits. And so we see what came to be that give rise to this restlessness, agitation, overwhelm, right? And we can also see, upon seeing these conditions, when these conditions fade, suffering too cease. I was uh I was at friend's a dear friend's home, and I was there visiting, and they were cooking dinner, and they're like, "We're so sorry. We're so sorry for the smell of the chicken. You know, I'm a vegetarian." And they're like, "We're so sorry. It smells like chicken in here." And I was like, "Oh, it's okay. Yeah, that's all right with me." I was like, "It actually smells really good." And then as dinner, their stew became ready. I said, "Okay, it's time for me to go." And the husband said, "Gosh, we would like invite you to stay for dinner, but we know you don't eat meat." And I said, you know, the forest monk, the Thai forest monk, the Theravada monks, when they go for alms round, whatever is offered and put into their bowl is what they eat. They're not saying, "I'm a vegetarian, you can't give me meat." I don't accept that. So they just accept whatever is given to them, and they're grateful for the offering. And they see this as food that is providing them with sustenance that supports their being, their life. So I got in trouble after saying that because later on, as I was getting ready to go, the husband of my dear friend said, "Trina, would you like to stay for dinner? We'd love to have you stay for dinner." And I said, "I would love to stay for dinner." So we set the table and the chicken stew came out. It was beautifully made and it had been stewing for like hours. Well prepared. It was this new recipe he was super excited about. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share this." And I had chicken for the first time in years and years. And to me, that also felt like the practice of the middle way, where we let go. There's this letting go of being so rigid, right? To allow for what's flexible. Yeah. Yeah. And also our practice and our spiritual path and our view shouldn't produce more tension and suffering in the world or tension and suffering for ourselves. It shouldn't cause us more conflict along the way. It should open us up to more connection, to be available for what really matters. Just like the Buddha, when he was so uptight and rigid about his practice, like, gotta practice like this. And then he's like, wait a minute. this doesn't work. This doesn't support me along the path. Right? So, knowing what conditions come to be when knowing the suffering that comes to be, what conditions are there and what conditions will allow for conflict and dis-ease to shift and change, to open us up to easiness, right? To goodness, to wholesomeness. So sometimes even the structure, the concepts that we put up, that creates that rigidity, that limits us, that puts us maybe leaning closer towards one extreme, right? Or dogmatism, right? Certain ideology. And what is that if we come back to what's in the middle? What's the balanced view? What's the balanced action and approach and way of seeing things? So this understanding that the understanding of these conditions that gives rise to suffering and then also has suffering fade away. When a practitioner understands this and sees this and comprehends this fully, are free from doubt. And their understanding has not come to them through others, but it is through their own insight. Through their own insight. And this insight is called right view. Right view. And right here, you can replace that word with wholesome view, wise view, skillful view, sama, right? Right view. And this is the way the Buddha would describe right view. So, avoiding the two extreme, the Buddha teaches the Dharma that dwells in the middle way. So, I like to invite you into your own reflection. Anything you're seeing in this moment, what's alive for you? What are you present to? What does it stir up inside of you when you think about what's the middle way for you? Or what's right now tipped too much towards one extreme? And we go about this not by way of comparing ourselves with the people around us, but we feel into that within ourselves. What is our nervous system saying? What are my emotions saying? What's being stirred up in here? And what causes this to settle down? Where do we soften the boundaries? Where do we take down that wall? Where do we say this is too much and actually not let something in, right? As a wholesome response, as a wholesome means, a skillful means. Today, someone shared their version of that, which was to say, no, thank you. No, thank you. Mm. Firm but gentle. Mm. Yeah, thanks, Margaret. So the middle way leads us to the Noble Eightfold Path that the Buddha taught, which is really spelled out really well, starting with having the right view. And the Noble Eightfold Path actually helps us to align to that, to what is in the middle. Because when we are in the middle, there is integrity, there is an alignment to what is based on the conditions that are already there. We're aligning ourselves to what is. And when we align ourselves to what is, things work out. Our life should work. You know, if it's not workable, that means that we need to go back and see where we need to make some refinements in the 8 steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. The step of our practice, we can call it step or practice of right view, right intention or thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness. And then lastly, right concentration. So on this path, we find where am I leaning too much this way or too much that way and find that middle. And what it actually is it's so simple because what it is actually more of sensing into what is wholesome as we go through the world and we feel that wholesomeness inside. So that becomes a way we tune into, is this wholesome? Is this supportive? Is this serving? Right. So it takes us out of the binary of right and wrong, but more so into that felt experience of it within us. I just said that instead of thinking, was that right or was that wrong? Feel into that. Is that, does it feel wholesome and good in me? Or does it feel like there's a tightening, a contraction when I'm next to this person or in front of them? Does my nervous system relax? Or is it really nervous or excited or activated in some way? Is that activation wholesome or it feels kind of, not supportive? I think that's also a way people have done it with dating, is to tune into that because the mind will say so many things. And just in general, our mind can tell us one thing, but our body, the feeling tone, can be our teacher, can help us read into things. And our mindfulness practice helps us to sharpen that ability to feel into things and know what is real, what is true, and help us to align ourselves with the path. And on the path, we have the clarity to see, to know, to understand. Yeah. Any questions? Anyone with something burning, or you feel your heart beating a little faster, or your cheeks getting warm? That's the time to share. Mhm. There's a mic right here. I think it'd be helpful to use the mic so that way those on Zoom can hear you. I'll end with this poem. It's, it's been a emerging favorite again, and the anatomy of peace. So if you don't know which is the middle way, you could just lean into the words of this poem and you'll find your way home. My brain and heart divorced a decade ago over who was to blame about how big of a mess I have become. Eventually, they couldn't be in the same room with each other. Now my head and heart share custody of me. I stay with my brain during the week, and my heart gets me on the weekends. They never speak to one another. Instead, they give me the same note to pass to each other every week. And their notes they send to one another always says the same thing. This is your fault. On Sundays, my heart complains about how my head has let me down in the past. And on Wednesday, my head lists all the times my heart has screwed things up for me in the future. They blame each other for the state of my life. There's been a lot of yelling and crying. So lately, I've been spending a lot of time with my gut, who serves as my unofficial therapist. Most nights, I sneak out of the window in my rib cage and slide down my spine and collapse on my gut's plush leather chair that's always open for me. And I just sit, 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 sit until the sun comes up. Last evening, my gut asked me if I was having a hard time being caught between my heart and my head. I nodded. I said I didn't know if I could live with either of them anymore. My heart is always sad about something that happened yesterday, while my head is always worried about something that may happen tomorrow. I lamented. My gut squeezed my hand. I just can't live with my mistakes of the past or my anxiety about the future, I sighed. My gut smiled and said, in that case, you should go stay with your lungs for a while. I was confused. The look on my face gave it away. If you are exhausted about your heart's obsession with the fixed past and your mind's focus on the uncertain future, your lungs are the perfect place for you. There's no yesterday in your lungs. There's no tomorrow there either. There's only now. There's only inhale. There's only exhale. There is only this moment. There is only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your head and heart work their relationship out. This morning, while my brain was busy reading tea leaves and while my heart was staring at old photographs, I packed a little bag and walked to the door of my lungs. Before I could even knock, she opened the door with a smile, and as a gust of air embraced me, she said, what took you so long? So in your lungs, there's no to-do list. There's no news. There's no what's next. There's just now. So come and stay with your lungs and breathe and let your breath bring you back home, dear friends. So thank you all for being here, for joining me in the practice. That was a poem by John Rodell called The Anatomy of Peace. I'm happy that you're here and that you've chosen this time out of your life to be here and come to practice and hear the teachings of the Dharma. I wish you a lovely evening. May you be well. May you stay on the path of the middle way. Please take care. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to unmute yourself, those of you on Zoom, if you'd like to bring in your voice to say goodbye. See if they can see you. Yeah.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you, Sangha.
Steffi's waving. Bye, everyone. Bye, Mary. Bye, Carol. Bye, Robert and Kimberly and Peggy. So welcome.
Nice to spend the day with you.
Yes, it's been wonderful. My gosh, what a treat. Bye, Peggy. Bye, everyone.